The president of my HOA thought she could get me arrested by filing a false police report. The lesson was hers when I showed up at the next board meeting with a responding officer to inform her that I used to be his boss, because I was the police chief. If you love a good story about a bully getting a reality check, do me a favor and hit that like button and subscribe for more. You're not going to want to miss how this played out. After 30 years in law enforcement, ending my career as the chief of police, all I wanted was to fade into a quiet, peaceful retirement. My wife and I found what we thought was the perfect spot, a neat, orderly neighborhood with perfect lawns and a sense of calm you could almost feel. It seemed like the ideal antidote to a career spent dealing with the loudest, most chaotic parts of life. We bought the house, unpacked, and for a few weeks, it was everything we'd hoped for. Then, we met Dana Morton. Dana wasn't just the president of our homeowners association. She was the self-appointed queen of her little kingdom, and she ruled it with an iron fist and a laminated copy of the HOA bylaws. The first time I saw her, she was marching down the sidewalk with a clipboard, her eyes scanning each property like a drill sergeant inspecting the barracks. She wasn't just looking, she was hunting for violations. It didn't take long for her to land on my doorstep. It started with something so small, it was almost funny. A crisp, white envelope was tucked into my door handle. Inside was a formal violation notice. My crime? The welcome mat my daughter gave us was, according to Dana, a non-compliant shade of beige. I had to read it twice. The notice even included a photo of the mat next to a paint swatch from the official HOA color palette. Look, I'm a rule follower by nature. A career in law enforcement drills that into you. Besides, I was retired. I didn't want drama. I just wanted to grill burgers and read books. So, I swapped the welcome mat for one that matched their soul-crushingly dull color scheme. I figured that would be the end of it. Instead, it was like an invitation. My compliance must have looked like weakness, and Dana pounced. The notices started coming weekly. My garbage cans were a half-inch too far from the curb. The flowers my wife planted were cited for insufficient vibrancy. I got a formal warning because the little red flag on my mailbox was, on a windy day, angled just a bit too far. Each notice was more absurd than the last, and each came with a condescending, handwritten note from Dana about maintaining our community's aesthetic integrity. I tried reasoning with her. I called and politely suggested that her time might be better spent on actual community issues. Her response was ice cold. She told me she was the last line of defense against neighborhood decay and that my lax attitude was the biggest threat. It was clearly personal. I decided to protect myself, not with a fight, but with technology. I installed a single, discreet security camera above my garage, pointed right at my own driveway and front porch. It was my property, and it didn't violate a single privacy law or HOA rule. A day later, a new violation notice appeared. Unapproved architectural modification. I checked the bylaws from front to back. There was nothing in there about security cameras. I wrote her a polite, formal letter in response, pointing out the specific bylaws that proved my camera was fine and telling her it was staying up. This, I'd soon learn, was an act of defiance she couldn't stand. I had challenged her with facts. In her world, that was a declaration of war. She told a neighbor she was going to teach me a lesson so I'd understand who was really in charge. I just had no idea her lesson plan involved the very department I used to run. It was a Tuesday afternoon. I was in the backyard, finally getting a taste of that peace I'd been dreaming of, when the doorbell rang. I walked to the front and saw two uniformed police officers on my porch. They were young, and they looked uncomfortable. "Sir, are you the owner of this home?" one of them asked. "I am," I said. "Everything okay, officers?" The other one cleared his throat. "Sir, we got a call reporting threatening behavior at this address. The caller, a Ms. Dana Morton, claims you were monitoring her home and that you verbally threatened her this morning." I was just stunned for a second. It was a complete, dangerous lie. But I kept my cool. Years of training kick in. Getting angry wasn't going to help. "Officers," I said calmly, "I haven't spoken to Ms. Morton in over a week, and I've definitely never threatened her. Would you like to come in? They followed me inside, and I walked them through the whole story: the harassment, the ridiculous fines, and the fight over the security camera. My camera, I explained, only records my own property. And it's been on all day. I can show you the footage right now. You'll see me gardening and reading. You won't see me anywhere near her. I pulled up the footage on my laptop. We watched the most boring video of my day. The officers saw the truth instantly. As it played, I decided it was time to change the dynamic. You know, I said, I spent 30 years on the force. Just retired last year. I glanced at the younger officer's name tag. Officer Miller, right? I don't think we ever met before I left, but I was your chief. The whole vibe in the room shifted. These two young men, who had been cautious and professional, suddenly snapped to attention. Their eyes went wide. Officer Miller looked at me, then at his partner, and back at me. You're Chief Renshaw? He stammered. One and the same, I said with a small smile. And I can tell you that filing a false police report is an offense I always took very seriously. I let that hang in the air for a moment. This wasn't just an HOA squabble anymore. Wasting police resources and trying to intimidate someone with fake accusations is a real crime. Where I live, filing a false police report is a misdemeanor, and the penalties can be serious, including potential jail time and thousands of dollars in fines. I had an idea. Officer Miller, I asked, the next HOA meeting is tomorrow night. Would you be willing to come with me? I think it's time the board, and Ms. Morton, understood exactly what she's done. A slow grin spread across his face. Absolutely, Chief. It would be my honor. The HOA meeting was in a sterile, fluorescent-lit clubhouse. About 20 residents were there, sitting in folding chairs. Up front, at a long table, sat the board, with Dana right in the middle. She was in the middle of a speech, her voice dripping with self-importance. And that is why we must remain vigilant, she said. There are people who believe the rules don't apply to them. It is our duty to enforce those rules to protect our property values. In fact, we recently had to involve law enforcement to deal with a particularly problematic resident. Her eyes shot to the back of the room, right where I was standing. She expected me to be embarrassed, afraid. She didn't expect what happened next. Right on cue, the door opened and Officer Miller walked in full uniform. He walked silently to the back of the room and stood right next to me. The room went quiet. Every eye was on the officer. Dana faltered, her smug look turning to confusion. But she tried to spin it. As you can see, she said, gesturing vaguely at him. The police are here. They understand how serious the situation is. I let her finish digging her own hole. Then, in the heavy silence, I spoke up, my voice calm but loud enough for everyone to hear. He certainly does. I nodded to Officer Miller. He walked to the front of the room. Good evening, everyone. My name is Officer Miller. I'm here tonight at the request of one of your residents, Mr. Mark Renshaw.
He gestured to me.
Yesterday, I was sent to Mr. Renshaw's home after a call from Ms. Morton, who alleged criminal threats. After reviewing the evidence, it became clear the report was false. He then turned and looked right at me. Chief, he said, loud and clear. Would you like to take it from here? If you could hear the sound of a person's world collapsing, that was it. Dana just froze. Her mouth opened, but nothing came out. Her eyes, wide with panic, darted between the officer and me. Whispers erupted in the audience. Chief. I walked slowly to the front. Good evening, I began. For those who don't know me, I'm Mark Renshaw. And as Officer Miller just said, until I retired 6 months ago, I was the chief of police for the city. I turned my gaze on Dana. Ms. Morton, you decided to teach me a lesson by filing a false police report. What you did was not only a waste of police time and taxpayer money, it's a crime. An investigation has been opened into your false report. That security footage you called an unapproved modification? It's now evidence that proves your claims were a complete fabrication. The aftermath. The rest of the board was in shock, staring at Dana with a mix of horror and anger. They were business people and retirees, and they understood one thing perfectly: liability. Dana had just exposed the entire HOA to a massive legal risk. Realizing the legal nightmare they were facing, the board immediately called an emergency session. The first step was a unanimous vote to suspend Dana from her position as president while the formal process for her permanent removal got underway. Officer Miller officially took her statement, and I gave him a copy of my camera footage and a log of all her previous notices. Over the next few months, the system I dedicated my life to worked. The district attorney's office reviewed the case, and with the undeniable video evidence, they charged Dana Morton with filing a false police report. She pleaded guilty to avoid a trial. The judge noted her pattern of harassment, which other neighbors also came forward to confirm, and sentenced her to 2 years of probation, 200 hours of community service, and a significant fine. The HOA board, in a formal hearing, didn't just permanently remove her. They pushed through a bylaw amendment to make sure no one found guilty of a similar crime could ever serve on the board again. Peace finally returned to our neighborhood. The new HOA president is a reasonable person who cares more about community potlucks than welcome mats. My wife's flowers are as vibrant as she wants, and my mailbox flag flaps in the wind. I finally have the quiet retirement I dreamed of. Dana learned the hard way that authority doesn't come from a clipboard and petty rules. It comes from integrity, something she knew nothing about. So, what do you think is the most ridiculous HOA rule you've ever heard of? Let me know in the comments below, and thanks for watching.